What's up, everybody? Welcome to Moxie Bets Season 2, starting today, presented by Caesar Sportsbook. Thanks for rocking with us. Today, we're talking Major League Baseball All-Star Weekend and the Home Run Derby, always a fun one. And we are back with my guy, Kenny Bets Big. Kenny, welcome to Season 2. How you doing?
I'm doing good. It's been a minute. I feel like it's been
Yeah.
forever since I've been on the show. But not too bad. I woke up today. My day's flustered already. Maria, she had court, and now everything's done via Zoom.
Ooh.
So I was like her stand-in attorney because she's never been to court. So I was battling with the prosecutor back and forth. So I'm
Good
ready to
luck.
go. Let's go, Katie.
Wait. Really? You were acting like a lawyer today.
Yeah, I swear. I've been to court so many times for like speeding tickets and, moving
Okay.
violations. So I know how the process works. She's very timid. She doesn't want to argue with people unless it's me, of
Yeah.
course. But so the prosecutor that she was bullying her, and I'm not going to stand for that. So I started asking very normal questions to ask a prosecutor, and she didn't
Uh-huh.
like that I was asking those questions. So we were butting heads a little bit, and she didn't like it.
Do you win? Like, what was the ruling, or
We're
when
we're
do you
go
find
we're
out?
going to trial.
Wow. Are you gonna be the lawyer for
Yeah,
trial too? You're gonna
I
pass that to somebody else?
no, I want to. If I'm allowed to, I want to. My mom always said, "Kenny, you should be a lawyer because you are really
Yeah,
good at arguing."
yeah.
Didn't listen to that though, so
Well, I mean, Kenny argues big too, I guess. Well,
yeah.
that is very interesting. Good luck at trial. Can't wait to hear how that is. And yes, it has been a minute. We did take, I think, almost a couple weeks off, or at least a full week. It felt like forever. As well. But let's kick things off here, Kenny, and talk MLB All-Star Game. If we look at the starters for this game, and I know that we're going to throw up a graphic here, are there any snubs that you are kind of surprised that didn't make the list? I mean, De La Cruz just stole home, which was pretty crazy. But in looking at this, who do you think is a snub?
Yeah, Ellie De La Cruz is the most exciting player in baseball. It's not even close. So I don't think I'm going on a limb saying that, but I think Francisco Lindor. I'm not saying because he's a Met, but I think Francisco Lindor is having a really nice season. He got snubbed from the game, so he would probably be the first person that comes to mind for me.
Okay. And then what about, like, who do you think is going to have a big story coming out of this? Obviously, you got Otani on there. He's always going to be a big story. Mike Trout, maybe not the best year for him. Who do you think is going to have a big All-Star game?
Yeah, I mean, I kind of think Mike Trout. I obviously there's been so much talk about how he's having a down year. His OPS is
Yeah.
down, and all this. His strikeout rate is a little bit higher. But when you look at the numbers, like he's still better than almost everyone else in the league. His numbers are down from Mike Trout standards, where he's considered the greatest baseball player ever before Shohei Otani joined the MLB. But yeah, I wouldn't be surprised if Trout has a big game. He's won the MVP a few times in the All-Star game. Randy Rosarina, when the lights shine are the brightest, he usually steps up. So wouldn't be shocked if he has a big home run derby as well. But yeah, I'm
Ooh.
excited for looking at the home run field, which I know we're going to get into. This year is tough.
Yeah.
It's pretty tough.
Yeah. It is pretty tough this year. Well, who do you think is going to win the game, the National League or the American League? And I can't remember which one wins all the time. Is it the National League?
I think so. No, I
Yeah.
think the American League usually, like the
The
American
American
League won
League.
like 15 times in a row or something like that. I
Okay,
remember
yes.
that.
Then it's
Yeah.
fine. It's the American League. The American League, yeah, has won. Do you think they're going to win again?
Yeah. I mean, looking at the rosters, I do like their team a little bit better. Better pitching. They have the big bats: Shohei Otani, Trout. So yeah, I think the American League from top to bottom, looking at the batters, the pitching, I think they have a more complete team and a better team. So yeah, I'll probably be betting the American League.
All right, one more question. Do you miss how the All-Star game used to decide the home field advantage for the World Series? Do you think that this game should have any stakes?
Yeah, I mean, of course, right? I think when the game actually means something, the players are going to go out there. They're going to try a little harder. They're going to, put a little more effort forth. Because at the end of the season, if your team's, makes it to the World Series, it does have big implications. Like having that home field advantage is huge. So yeah, I don't like that they changed it. What about you?
I look, baseball is not my number one sport. I will say that. I have handicapped the home run derby. I watch the All-Star game. It's a fun thing. But I'm not going to sit here and say that I know everything there is to know about baseball. But yes, I think that there should be some kind of stakes to it. But then I also understand why there's not, because it really is just an exhibition game. And so to have that have like really serious implications like home field advantage is kind of a lot to assign to something that is basically an exhibition game. However, we're going to talk home run derby when we come back. Taking a quick break. You're watching Moxie Bets with Kenny Bets Big. We'll be right back. Why should you bet with Caesars Sportsbook? 2 words, Caesars Rewards. Every bet brings you closer to the type of benefits only Caesars can offer. Hotel stays, VIP experiences, sports and concert tickets, and more. It's not just an app, it's an empire. Welcome back to Moxie Bets, presented by Caesar Sportsbook. Let's talk about lines and betting for the home run derby, Kenny. So here is the lineup for this year's home run derby. Got Pete Alonso, the polar bear, the favorite. He was a back-to-back champion a couple of years ago at plus 300. Then you got Vladdy, who is one of your favorites, if I can't remember, plus 450. Then you got Robert, Rodriguez, Garcia, Mookie Betts down there at plus 900, and the list goes down from there. Who do you like to win? You were just saying that this field is pretty tough. Who are you giving the edge to?
Comparing it to years past, like, last year I had a strong opinion on someone who I thought would win it. This year I have it narrowed down to 3 guys that I'm considering to bet.
Wow.
Yeah. So
Okay.
Pete Alonso. The thing is,
Yeah,
since he got injured, he's been terrible. As a Mets
I
fan,
know.
I see it night in, night out. He's just been really bad since he suffered that injury. So, the home run derby, though, is his event. His swing, perfect for the home run derby. He's won it twice. He's going to try and be the second person to only win the event 3 times. You got to like Pete, right? He's always alive in it. But
Yeah.
looking at the odds and the value of it, I kind of like Luis Robert at plus 550.
Okay.
He's hit the ball the furthest this year, and he would be first in the American League in home runs if Shohei Ohtani didn't bat as well. So he's having a great year. He's already
Yeah.
passed his, like, in 2021, he only had 13 home runs. He's already doubled that amount halfway through the season this year. And then when you look at Luis Robert, what really holds him back in a game scenario is he just swings at really, really bad pitches sometimes. Well, in the home run derby, they're just lobbing the guy meatballs. So
Yeah. Yeah.
I think you take away his really big weakness, and I think Luis Robert at plus 550 is a live contender to win it for sure.
Who was it last year? I can't remember that had their dad throwing the pitches for them, which was a great story, but ended up not being not being a good pitcher. Like he definitely should have gone with one of his guys. I can't remember. I'll have to think about who this is, but I remember being like, "Oh, this isn't going well for you," and I can't remember who it was. But anyways, I'm gonna go with Mookie Betts here. Mookie Betts. Look, like you said, Alonso, 2-time home run derby champion, 26 homers this season. But, you mentioned that wrist issue. He just really hasn't been the same. And his strikeout rate is noticeably higher than it has been in the previous 2 seasons. You got Vladdy there, who has the record for the most home runs in a single round, which he set back in 2019, obviously before the pandemic. But he only has 13 home runs this season. So when I look at the top 2 chalky ones, I'm not mad at Pete Alonso either. I think might as well like sprinkle a little bit on him. But I do feel like, Mookie Betts is facing Vladdy in the very first round.
Mhm.
And so if he can get out of that, I think he has a really good chance. He's at plus 900. Mookie has 26 dingers this season, the same as Luis Robert and the polar bear for the most in the field. But it seems like he's a bit underpriced here. If he can win the first matchup, which is at plus 192, I think he's got a good chance to go all the way at plus 900.
Yeah, I'm not mad at that. I will say this though, I feel like Vladdy, for whatever reason, I expected him to be getting a lot of love coming into this event. I would have thought a lot of people would be running to bet Vladimir Guerrero
Yeah.
Jr. after the first showing he had in what was it, 2019? I think it was.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes. It was slow start. Yeah.
Yeah. So I would have expected more people to really be on that Vladimir Guerrero Jr. train, but I'm not really hearing a lot of talk about him. So that kind of worries me. But yeah, value wise, I think Mookie Betts is definitely there. You already talked about it. He's got an average exit velo in the top 92nd percentile in all of baseball this year. third in MLB with 26 home runs. So Mookie Betts is like a fine wine, right? He's just getting better with age.
And he's got the greatest name. I know Vladdy didn't have the slow start. Vladdy's the one that had the most home runs in a single round, but I feel like he had a slow start too. I don't know. 2019
No,
was a very, very long.
he died down when
He
yeah,
died down. Okay, started out strong and then he died down.
yeah, tired
Okay,
out
makes sense.
like Julio last year.
Yeah. Oh God. Yeah. God, I gotta remember who it was whose father was pitching because I remember it being like a huge upset because he was like one of the favorites to win. But anyways, okay. So moving on to a long shot, and my first pick is kind of a little bit of a long shot at plus 900. But who has some value that maybe people are sleeping on?
Yeah, so I guess I jumped the gun. I got a little too excited. You brought up Mookie Betts, and I jumped the gun here. But Mookie Betts, not a bad option for the reasons I already said. And then Adley Rutschman, the longest price in the field.
Yes.
Not someone I'm
Yes.
putting my money on, Katie. But when you look at,
I am.
are you a little sprinkle,
Yes.
sprinkle?
Yes.
No. So
Well, you tell me why.
yeah, here's the only thing that I like about Adley Rutschman is he's a switch hitter, so he can hit from the left side. Um, in that stadium, there's been 12 more home runs from the left side of the plate as compared to the right side. So, he's got if he can pull the ball out there, he's got a little bit shorter fence to go over. So that's the only advantage I really see for Adley Rutschman, though. But at plus 2,000, you can find him at it's not a bad bet.
It's not a bad bet. And I was looking up the same stats that you were looking up. In fact, according to StatCast, in night games played at T-Mobile, the home run factor is a whopping 110 for lefties versus just 98 for righties this season. So if you're going to pick a long shot, you might as well pick the switch hitter, the one person that can also bat lefty and sprinkle a little bit on there. So I love that as well. Now, looking at some prop bets here, the longest home run. Who do you think that's going to be?
I like Luis Robert, and I like him for a few reasons.
Favorite.
One, yeah, he's the favorite, but that's because he mashes home runs. He holds the record this season for the longest home run. He also hit one a few years back that was 487 feet in an actual game. So you consider that, and then you look at who he's going up against in the field. Vladdy, Julio Rodriguez, some of these guys who have already been in it and kind of swung themselves out of the competition, right? Like we already talked about how Vladdy got off to a crazy hot start, but by the finals, he was gassed. Julio Rodriguez got off to a hot start, but by the finals, he was gassed. So I think some of those guys who have experience in the competition may not be swinging for the absolute fences. You know what I mean?
I know what you mean. I know what you mean. I'm gonna go Julio Rodriguez on this one. Hometown, or it's his. He's going to be familiar with the ballpark. Obviously, he plays for Seattle. He's likely going to have the loudest cheers because there's going to be more hometown fans there. He hit one 463-foot home run last year in unfamiliar territory. So you got to think that he's going to do a lot better in familiar territory. And when we look at the last couple years, last year was at Coors Field. So I believe it featured like 500 plus, home runs, which we're obviously not going to see this year. I think Vladdy hit one that was like 476 in 2019. So it might be a little bit lower. And I think we're going to get into like how long it's actually going to be. But I do think that the hometown crowd could be good for Julio Rodriguez. So I'm going to go with him.
Little home favorite, homer pick.
I don't know. I just feel like you got the crowd behind you. You're pumped. You know the ballpark better than anybody else. So I'm going to go with him. Now, when you look at the over and under, which let me see what this is priced. Okay, 483.5, both juiced to minus 115. I'm leaning on the under in this one just because T-Mobile is slightly below average for home runs this year, especially during the day. Now, this does start at 5 p.m. So you got to think that first round is in that like daytime mode. And then by the time it gets nighttime, they might be a little bit gassed. So I'm going to lean under this because Seattle is not Colorado.
Yeah, I'm gonna go over just to give the viewers both sides. But no, when you look at the field, there's just absolute like power hitters in here. Adolis Garcia is a monster. Polar Pete, as long as the wrist is good, he could easily eclipse that. Luis Robert already talked about. He's hit one 487 in an actual live game. So I would lean to the over. Not something I would bet personally. I don't think we're going to talk about this prop, but so I'll just mention it. I like the over the
Okay.
total number of home runs.
Okay. Which is what? What's the line?
276 and a half.
Ooh.
Going back to 2019, there's been at least 290 home runs hit every year. So
All
that's
right. Well,
probably one that I'm actually going to bet.
okay. I love that one. All right. So the All-Star game marks midway through the season. So
Mhm.
let's take a look back and let's talk about World Series odds. You were hopeful about the Mets
Yeah.
in the beginning of the season. I don't think you are feeling as good about them right now. If we look at the World Series odds as they stand, you got the Braves as the favorite. I mean, who could stop the Braves right now? Plus 350. Then you got the Rays plus 500. The Dodgers, always a good contender, plus 550. And then you got the Astros, who seem to, come alive come the playoffs every single year at plus 700. For me, it's hard to bet against Atlanta at this point, and I also think you can't necessarily count out the Astros. But when you look at how the season's gone, who's your best bet to win the World Series?
What are the Mets at, Katie? No, just kidding. Listen,
Not in the
don't.
top 10.
Yeah. Don't bet the Mets. I was telling Katie before the show, the Mets have stolen so much money from me this month.
Yeah.
Yeah. Listen, I got a Ronald Acuna jersey right here. If you
Yeah,
can't beat them,
nice.
join them. The
Mhm.
Braves they're like an anomaly because usually teams that are this hot, like the Rays, right? They started the season off scorching hot, but they've cooled down significantly since then. The Braves, I keep betting against them, thinking they're gonna like cool down. I
Yeah.
lost the bet the other day, Katie, fading them. They had 2 hits in the whole game, and I lost. I lost the bet.
I
Like,
hate that.
yeah, so the Braves are just a really good team, really complete. Like their 9 hitter was the rookie of the year last year, Michael Harris. So yeah, the Braves are scary, and the NL is a little down this year. The Dodgers look a little weak. The
Yeah.
Mets super weak this year, unfortunately. So I like the Braves and I like the Astros. Just the Astros are getting a better value on what you're betting, right? Plus 700,
Yeah.
you're going to get a better
Yeah.
return on your money. They've been playing this year without Michael Brantley so far, one of the best hitters in the American League. They haven't had Yordan Alvarez for half the season. Somehow he's still top 5 in RBIs in the American League. So when you get guys like that back in the lineup come playoff time, and if they start clicking at the right time, they're a really scary team to face in the playoffs.
Yeah, couldn't agree more. Okay, good. So we're aligned with that, which
Mhm.
always makes me feel a little bit better. Now, you mentioned Ronald Acuna Jr. When we look at NL MVP odds, he is the pretty sizable favorite, minus 360. And then you got my guy Mookie Betts plus 750, and it just keeps going up from there. Interestingly enough, there's actually two Dodgers in the mix. One is Acuna Jr. a lock? Are we even looking at anybody else? And then also when you see that there's two Dodgers, both Mookie and Freddie Freeman, does this affect their value in betting on either of them?
So I wouldn't call Ronald Acuna a lock, especially
Okay,
because it is a season long future, right? So if let's say, knock on wood, I don't ever wish for an injury, but let's say he gets hurt,
true.
coming out of the All-Star break and he misses the rest of the season, he's probably not going to win the award. So I would never tell someone to lay minus 360 a bet like that
Okay.
because there's so much variance that goes into it. Mookie Betts at plus 750, you have to like that, especially
Yeah.
when you consider that the Dodgers don't look like world beaters like they've looked in years past, right?
Mm,
So if the Dodgers, who are currently not in first in their division, if the second half of the season they really start turning up, looking like the Dodgers of old, and Mookie Betts is the catalyst of that, I think that will really, really help his case to win the award. But like you said, Freddie Freeman is also there. So yeah, I think that always does affect, the voters because Freddie's going to steal votes from his teammate.
okay, that makes a lot of sense. Now moving on to the AL, I don't. It's not even worth talking about, right? The Shohei Otani minus 850. Not only is he the best player in the AL, the best player in the league, but possibly the greatest player that's ever played the game. So you're not going to lay, minus 850. You're not going to bet minus 850 for him to win this. Now you could parlay it with him also winning the Cy Young Award where he's plus 1,000. Is that something you would look at for Shohei Otani, or do you just like leave the AL alone when it comes to these awards?
So I stand corrected. I said there's no such thing as a lock. Yeah,
Yeah.
Shohei
Yes.
Otani is
Yes.
a lock. Uh,
Yes.
that guy is just insane. Yeah, like, yeah, he's got to be the best baseball player of all time. Like,
Of all time. Of all
yeah,
time. Yeah.
yeah, it's not even a debate anymore. I don't like him to win the Cy Young though.
Yeah.
Just for the reason of, like, we've seen it like in other leagues like the NBA, right? Where, like, this year with Jokic, right? Perfect example. Jokic should have been the MVP this year. It's not even a debate. It was his best season over the last 3 seasons, but the voters probably didn't want to give it to him again. So Embiid got the award. I
Yeah.
don't see them giving Ohtani the Cy Young and the MVP unless he was just like lights out, far and away better than the other pitchers. Cy Young, I gave it on this show before the season started. I still like Shane McClanahan. He was
Hmm.
the favorite at one point. He's dropped down a little bit. You can get him at plus 700, which still not as good as what his odds were before the season started. But he's second in ERA with a 2.53, tied for first in baseball with 11 wins. His last 2 starts, he got pulled from his last start 3 innings because his back started flaring up. So he's had 2 bad starts back to back, and I think that's why his odds have dropped. But I
Okay.
think the All-Star break is coming at the perfect time for him, where he's dealing with just little nagging injuries. I think he'll have some time off, be able to, let his body recover and see how he does going in the second half of the season.
All right, looking at the NL now for the Cy Young Award, you got Zach Gallen at the top, followed by Clayton Kershaw, pretty close behind. Do you think that Kershaw can keep up with this Renaissance season he's having?
Absolutely. Yeah, there's no reason why, like, Clayton Kershaw is like the baseball Tom Brady, right? He's
Oh,
just
what a
yeah, he's
compliment to
just
you.
like all time Clayton Kershaw. Just when you think he's starting to lose a little bit, he comes out and he pitches an absolute gem. So yeah, Clayton Kershaw, he's one of my favorite pitchers of all time. I've loved him since I was a little kid.
Yeah.
So I would love to see him get another Cy Young under the belt.
I would too. I will say he's a very, very nice guy too. I don't know him personally, but my best friend's husband is a hitting coach for the Dodgers, and I always see that the Kershaws are doing very nice things for all of the team kids. So I just think they're just nice, wonderful people too. So I would love that for him as well. Any other bets or things to keep in mind when betting the second half of the baseball season that we should know?
I personally think the lines get a little sharper going
Okay.
into the second half of the season, right? I know I talked about how the Braves have looked unstoppable.
Yeah.
Those things just don't continue. Now, the Braves may
Okay.
be, like I said, an anomaly, and they may be able to do it, but I would be careful betting the Braves going in the second half. I think at some point they will hit a little speed bump. Those things usually happen over a 162 game season.
Mhm.
And keep your eye on the Mets, Katie. I'm
Oh,
telling you
jeez.
that. No, listen, we
Why? Why? What have the Mets shown you that you would say keep your eye on the Mets?
okay. So I've had this argument so many times with my friends because I keep
Okay.
telling them, like, the Mets are going to turn it around. And I'm not
Okay.
saying that as a fan, because honestly, as a Mets fan, my heart's been broken year after year
Yeah.
after year. So I'm used to it by now.
Yeah.
But going into July, they were 3 games behind the Braves for first place, right? Coming out of July, they were 18 and a half games out of first place. They just started a little rally. They won like 5, 6 games in a row heading into the
Yeah.
All-Star game before they just lost 2. But so,
Yep.
yeah, I had to throw that in there. But a lot of those games that they lost, which I was betting them in these games, they had no business losing. They had a lot of injuries, like no Jose Quintana the first half of the season. So their rotation was shortened. And people don't realize when the rotation is a little hindered, that affects the bullpen, because now, the bullpen's forced to throw more innings. So they should be getting Jose Quintana back for the second half of
Mhm.
the season. I think that will help bolster up the
Huge.
bullpen a little bit as well. So I think some of those games where the Mets, blew huge leads, like the Mets blew a few games against the Braves and the Astros, where they were up tons of runs, like 6 runs, 7 runs, and still couldn't get it done. And that's just because the bullpen has pitched so many innings so far into the season. But I think the second half, like I said, getting Quintana back, he's not a number one pitcher, but I think it will just give them another decent arm there to kind of take some pressure off some of the other guys.
All right. Well, I always say it's better to start slow and start to peak in the second half of the season than it is to start hot and start to fall off towards the end. So don't count the Mets out. You heard it from Kenny Betts Big. We'll have to see how that goes. I'm actually going to a game this weekend versus the Dodgers, so we'll have to see how they
Ooh, it's
versus
exciting.
the
Which
in
game are you going
St.
to?
Louis.
Was it Saturday?
Saturday. Yeah,
All
going
right,
on
that should be a
Saturday.
good one.
Yeah. So we'll have to see how that goes. All right, guys. Thank you so much to Kenny Betts Big for joining us. This has been Moxie Bets presented by Caesars Sportsbook. Don't forget to follow us on social and tweet us your questions. We could answer them on our show. We'll see you on Thursday.